Hope you're doing well. We're tracking a pretty interesting storm system or series of systems along the west coast here, going out through the rest of the week and into the weekend. Here in Las Vegas, we're tracking some very strong winds this afternoon and tonight. We could see some gusts up in the 70-mile-per-hour range. So hopefully everybody's hunkered down for that. Beyond that, we're going to see some precipitation chances, which are going to be pretty interesting with colder air around. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about more here as we go forward. So what I want to do here is showcase first, we're going to take a look at a group of models and how much snow they think is going to fall. This is a collection here. We're looking at Harry Reid, LAS, Las Vegas Airport. Total snow accumulation out to late Saturday. The average of these different models, the European, the GFS, the Canadian, and some short range models is a little bit over an inch, maybe an inch and a half. We break it down to different models. The European has, let's see, right about an inch total. The Canadian model has less than a half an inch, and the high-res models are less than a half an inch. The GFS model, which is average into all this, is pretty high at over 4 inches. Typically, this model seems to be overdone because it tends to try, in my opinion, to, when situations are marginal, to create too much snow versus rain. So probably why this number is significantly higher. And while there's a non-zero chance this could happen, things would have to go exceptionally right for this to occur. So we're going to pretty much throw that out. I think the European is more realistic on the high-end range of this. And if we just factor in the models here, I think closer to half an inch. This is at again at the airport. What I see from this really is that I don't see much chance of snow accumulation on the strip. But I do see a good chance at least once and maybe twice that we could see some snowflakes in the air on the strip. But having said that, when you go a little bit west of there to where many people live, 500 to 1,000 feet higher. I live, for example, about 500 feet higher than the strip at 2,600 feet. And that's where we could see a little bit more meaningful snow at some point. And there's a couple of chances for that to happen. But even then, it gets pretty tricky as far as the interaction of the precipitation and cold enough air for anything meaningful to occur. Let's take a look at, we're just going to take a look at one model here, the European model. This is overnight tonight, strong cold front arriving. The green areas are places where precipitation has fallen during the past 3 hours. And these dashed lines represent how cold the atmosphere is between sea level and 25,000 feet. And that's just an indicator of that we often use to determine rain versus snow, for example. And as we take a look here going forward here, this front blasts through. This front will be through Las Vegas at 1 in the morning. We'll be on the cold side of this front with some moisture behind it. And at this point, it looks cold enough to me that from this point forward, if there's any more moisture left, we would see it fall mainly in the form of some light snow. And indeed, our models show in the next 3 hours that a little bit has fallen. So between 1 and 4 in the morning, I think we'll see a little bit of light snow out there. It might even briefly come down hard enough to give a light dusting somewhere, especially since it's at nighttime. You don't have the sun, the strong February sun, warming things up at the surface. So you could see a little something out there if you happen to be up at between 1 and 4 in the morning, but odds are when you wake up at 7 or 8 or so, you're not even going to know it happened. Unless you look on social media where some folks I'm sure will have some photos and videos of whatever does transpire. But that's chance number one. That's going to be heading out quickly. The main thing we're watching is the storm system behind it. And we're going to see how much of this moisture can get into our area with enough cold air left over. At this point, there's lots of cold air as we head through Wednesday. Cold air aloft. Again, I'm not so concerned about what the temperatures are on the ground. Obviously, they'll get well up into the 40s, but when you have that kind of cold air aloft, all you have to do is have precipitation fall into it, and you'll easily cool surface temperatures enough within a few degrees of freezing at the surface to where you can see snowflakes reach the ground. So we're at this point through Wednesday and into Thursday that pretty much anything that falls out of the sky would be in the form of snowflakes or snow pellets. And but there's just not a whole lot of moisture around, so we're probably just going to see some clouds, maybe some precipitation aloft, while we wait for this system to slowly move off to the south. Now, as we get into Thursday evening, this may represent our next chance here to see some snowflakes, as we see some moisture gathering nearby. And about 24 hours ago on this model, saw a little bit more moisture for Thursday night. That's really the best chance we have of getting some accumulation, because that's when it's still plenty cold enough to see snow, especially if it happens at night. We have this moisture around as we go out through 4 o'clock and into the early evening at 7 p.m. But then it is, on the model, it's heading out to the northeast during the night, so not a lot left over. So not too promising there for anything real meaningful, but we could see some spurts of light snow in there. Light snow and snow pellets, depending upon where you are elevation-wise. I don't think you would see any raindrops. It's just too warm for that. The snow pellets are kind of like the Dippin' Dots. They're partially melted snowflakes if the temperature where you are at the surface is a little too warm, but you still see these things that look like snowfall, and they're just a little softer than hail, and they kind of would just bounce off the ground. So you might see some snow pellets or some snowflakes. Now, as we go through time, here comes this system wrapping south. It's going to be very cold aloft to where we could see some snow at some unusually low elevations. Even some flakes could be observed in San Francisco with this, near sea level. Looks like the main chance for significant accumulation is going to be about 1,000 feet or higher, which is very low even for areas in California. It's going to be a very meaningful snowfall. But the question is, how much of this moisture can get into our area while it's cold enough? Because ahead of this system, we've got counterclockwise flow, and as we go through Friday, it's really going to want to warm things up. And this 540 line right here kind of represents our last line of defense against rain, if you will, if you're looking for snow. And really, typically, we tend to need to be a little bit colder than that. But here, as we go out through Friday morning, there is a little bit of moisture around, so maybe there could be a few flakes. Still plenty cold enough, heading out to, that's 7 a.m. It's just not a lot of moisture being shown in our immediate area at that time. And notice that these lines are increasing from the south here. The numbers are getting higher. So as we go through the day, chances for snow are going to start to diminish. We really got to get that moisture in sooner, because as we go through the day, the snow level is going to get higher, and by the time we get into the late afternoon, any threat of snow is going to be in elevations above the Las Vegas Valley. And then we're looking at some significant rain potential moving in. This model is pretty slow at getting that in here. It could come in here a little quicker, though, than the model is saying. Wouldn't be surprised about that. But as this does eventually move in, we do start to get back into some colder air aloft near the core of the system, which is back here. So there'll be another chance as we go into Saturday evening here, as this blue line approaches. It really needs to get completely through and a little bit east of us before we really have a good shot. But as that moves out, there's enough moisture left over. We could see at least a brief change over back to some snowflakes from the west side of the valley, and perhaps into some lower elevations if the moisture hangs on long enough. And then we'll watch that moisture moving out. And in the Sunday morning, there might be an opportunity for a little bit of wraparound moisture. It's not really being shown too well in the model, so that's something that has happened before here, where we get a little bit of wraparound at the end that causes a little bit of snow accumulation, some of the higher elevations of the valley. But we're not actually seeing that verbatim on the model at this time. But basically, the bottom line here is, as we head to the next few days, we are going to see some opportunities for some snowflakes. I think we'll see at least one round of snowflakes on the strip, maybe two. And in the higher elevations of the valley west of the strip, we'll see probably at least 2 rounds of snowflakes. The question is, do we get a long enough period of snow and elevations from 2,500 to 3,000 feet or so, where we could see some accumulation? Might need to see a little bit of a change in the model, either slightly colder air when moisture moves in, or maybe the moisture moves in at just the right time in order for that to occur. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that as we get closer. Nonetheless, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And if you like this, drop a like on the video, and feel free to leave a comment or a question, and we'll see you next time.